we haven't had to do this a lot with the second semester geography where I've had to record some videos. So we're going to have to get back to what we had done in first semester geography just a little bit. And I want to go through the last few slides with you on how important oil is to the southwest region of Asia. So I think we would have stopped right about here. And we talked about OPEC, I know, how they were the group that is really kind of driving the prices and the world's oil supply. They decide, they meet twice a year, I think we found out. They decide how much will be exported, how much will be taken from proven reserves, and things of that nature. And that really does drive the cost of the world's oil supply. So there's some differences between petroleum and natural gas. You know, both are really important and both have their own important uses. Petroleum is formed from hundreds of years of fossil layers. Plants and algae break down, and the heavier carbon formations are oil. So if over thousands, millions of years actually, plants and animals die and then they kind of decompose, and then those layers break down and become what is oil. So we don't have an unlimited supply of petroleum simply because once, we can't just replenish dead animals cells and fossils, because that takes millions of years. And so we do have a finite amount of petroleum that we can get to. Natural gas is also formed from plant fossils, but it's more simple organic matter that wells up in the rocks. It's like the gaseous, and petroleum is more like the liquid, I guess you could say. And so it's the chemical processes that are happening from both of these broken down fossils, from both of these broken down remainders of plants and animals. To get both petroleum and natural gas out of the earth from these fossil layers, rocks have to be fractured. And you have to go deep within the earth. Now, if you can see this right here, this fracking kind of layer to get to the gas, if you've heard of what fracking means, you are drilling way down beneath in the earth, and then you are, if you can see right here, you are sending this tube piping to get into and break up the material to get the natural gas and petroleum out of there. I had the opportunity to go out to an oil field. I went to a week-long petroleum conference for teachers out in the western part of North Dakota. So I learned a lot about the fracking process and how we get oil, and how North Dakota really became on the kind of the cutting edge. Now, this whole system of fracking didn't really start, like, we didn't have the technology until about the 1920s in Southwest Asia. We just started using kind of these techniques in North Dakota in the last probably 50 years or so. The world's largest oil field is in Saudi Arabia, Al Ghawar. It's on the edge of the desert of Rub al Khalil, and so it seems like an unlimited supply, but we know that it is not. Other methods are being used to power things. We're trying to look at the power of the sun, the power of the wind. After last night's wind, I think that, like, North Dakota could probably power half of the Midwest with all of the wind that we have. But those technologies are also expensive, not always as reliable, but they might be renewable. And so we do need to be mindful of what we're doing to our environment, what we're doing to the geography, what we're doing to the land when we have to get to these natural resources. Then we have to transport this oil. So once we get it out of the ground, we have to transport it. If you have your book at home, you can take a look at that picture on page 498. It's not always the easiest process. It's not always without accidents or collisions. Pipelines carry the oil or the natural gas to refineries, and that's where the crude oil is refined into useful products. But we have a big issue right now. In fact, our president has stopped the pipeline production and construction because it's a very controversial issue. You know, if you remember a few years back, the pipeline that went through North Dakota, it was going through sacred burial grounds of Native American groups, especially in south of Bismarck there. You know, these are big political issues that are also kind of social issues as well. So it's not so easy to just get it out of the ground and then figure out what to do with it. Tankers then carry the crude oil from the ports to the refineries. And crude oil is petroleum that's not been processed. And of course, there's risks that go along with all of this. Not only collisions, spills, pipeline leaks is a big issue. In fact, that's one of the bigger issues right now, that people are saying these pipelines might be leaking into the ground, into the water table underneath, and it could be contaminating our soil and our water supply, and we don't even know it. But even environmentally, look at the smoke and the exhaust that's coming off of that refinery. You know, that's polluting the earth in its own way. And so, you know, while it seems like it's a good solution, it might not be the best, and it's definitely not the only solution. However, because of the abundance of oil, this is what has made the region in Southwest Asia so much money. In fact, it's called black gold. When they get this gold out of, they call it gold. When they get the oil out of the earth, it's as valuable as like a little piece of gold. And so, well, there we go. It's become a strategic commodity, and a commodity is something that can be traded, right? And if you know anything about strategy means, okay, if I do this, what's going to happen here? How will it affect this? Well, it has become, I even said in the slide before, nations will go to war over it because it's so important. It literally drives everything really in the world, in all progressive nations. So that's a difficult thing as well. Nations must use their wealth from oil to diversify their economy. There's some nations that literally the only thing their economy really thrives on is oil. So if they don't have other, say, natural resources, then they have to figure out, well, what else can we do other than producing oil and exporting oil? How can we have agriculture? How do we get food? How do we improve our infrastructure? How do we have better transportation? And so then they have to figure out how to use the money that they make from oil to do other things in their economy. They modernize infrastructure with that money. They have better roads, more irrigation networks, better airports, in order to do more things other than just export oil. Dubai, that's a picture of Dubai. Dubai is probably the leader in being able to diversify their economy. It's become a center of tourism and business. In the UAE is the United Arab Emirates. The world's tallest building now has been built in Dubai, the Burj Khalifa. These are like incredible feats of construction and engineering and technology and human ingenuity. But they were able to do it because of the resources, because of the money that they have made off of oil. And so they very much have become the leader, the cutting edge in oil diversification to use their wealth in different ways. I'd love to go to Dubai sometime. I think that'd be, I've always wondered, like, what is this? I think it's for people up here. It's some sort of almost like, I don't exactly know. I think it's like piece of art under the water, but I don't even really quite know. Countries who rely a lot on oil, often in Southwest Asia, don't have other natural resources. And so they have to develop ways and techniques to especially feed their nations, so they don't have to rely so heavily on agricultural imports. So they develop resources to, especially like water their crops and things. Agricultural and modern water technology are what helps them diversify even more. Nations are developing desalination practices, removing of the salt from the ocean. So they're able to use, say, ocean water to water their fields, which would have never been, that would kill your field before. Because of their location, because of their physical geography, they have to come up with new and kind of innovative ways to continue to survive and thrive as a nation. Irrigation methods have reduced the need for food imports when nations learn to grow their own. Fossil aquifers are deep underground. That's deep underground water. It cannot be replaced because once it's used, it comes from the rainfall. It comes from rain. And so we have a very big aquifer here in the central part of the United States. It's called the Ogallala Aquifer. It's centered, if you can imagine, about where Nebraska is. It's centered around Nebraska, and it's huge. It's North America's largest aquifer, underground aquifer. We're always watching that table because if we don't have enough rainfall, we don't have any deep water access or deep underground water access, and that's a really important way that we can continue to irrigate, that we can continue to even get fresh water supplies to all of our cities and areas around the country. Saudi Arabia is really no different. They have aquifers. They're not as large, but once they're used up, they're used up. Like, you just can't replenish them. Here's a picture right here of Saudi Arabia of how they've used irrigation methods. All of this is like this whole kind of brownish area. This is all desert, but they've used irrigation, and all of the green little kind of boxes now are areas that they have tilled the soil and been able to use irrigation to grow food. Now, this much of an area is 10 kilometers. That's not a whole lot, but it's an impressive look from the bird's eye view from the sky of how they're employing irrigation methods. And last and not least, the human resource. In Southwest Asia, we realize that humans can change their environment like every other place, and the environment shapes their humans. It shapes humans just like in every other place. And it's taken a long time, I think we would say, it's fair to say, in Southwest Asia, for people to realize how much skill and talent people have. You don't have to be of a certain gender, and you don't have to be of a certain religion. People are finally, I think, realizing in Southwest Asia that all people have a dignity and a skill and a talent that can be offered to improve society. It's a very democratic way of thinking, but Southwest Asia has not typically been real democratic minded. It's not until more probably in the last maybe even half of a century, maybe even 25 years, that they have given more opportunities. We realize that education is probably the key. And, we talked about that a little bit the other day when we were looking at what's happening in Syria. People who are in power and control, who are oppressing other people, don't want them to be educated, because that means you educate people on democratic rights and what justice means and truth. And once you know that, then you start working for those things, and that means people who are in power and control could lose that power. So there's still fewer opportunities for women in Southwest Asian countries. It's improving, it's getting better. we realize that education really is the key to that. And if you've ever heard of Malala, maybe you've read her story, maybe you've heard of her story. She was, she wanted to go to school. You know, she was a little girl whose father was a teacher, and she was a girl, and so she wasn't allowed to go to school. This was probably about, oh, maybe about 2010, 2005. It would have been quite a while ago. And she was shot by Taliban, by Al Qaeda forces, because she was disobeying, and she survived actually. And she realizes that that is like her number one goal, her number one priority is to get an education, because that's truly what leads to more liberty and more justice in Southwest Asia. So we're going to stop right there until we meet the next time. Tomorrow, all you have to do is CNN 10. So see you later. Enjoy your Easter break. Bye-bye.